Hello, Henning here. Today with a kind of different video about a different kind of product because many of you have asked. That's one reason. Also, the company kind of would like me to talk about it. That's almost a better reason. Actually, I think you guys asking is the best reason. It is about my DAW controller from Asparion, which is a very fancy name for a German company. They should have called it Dieter. I don't know. So that's what it looks like, and it's freaking huge. They actually would have been super nice and given me a fourth one, and that would have given me 32 freaking faders in a very small package. But I said package, but I still didn't have space for that. So we've got 24 faders here on the table in the width of a bigger monitor. So and you already saw it, I bought this behemoth, primarily to control the universal audio console during live streams and be able to go click, click, and have my mic on and off, which this could do with some extra software that someone programmed for the universal audio thing. So the thing with these DAW controllers, and there's many of them, there's the Mackie, there's SSLs, there's the PreSonus stuff, there's Asparion, Avid. They are all very specific, or most of them, except for the one I'm using now, very specific to the company's software. If you buy the one from Avid, of course, it is perfect for Pro Tools. It's amazing for Pro Tools. All the labeling and everything on it isn't necessarily great for Cubase, which is where I work. Now, Steinberg had one a while ago, and I don't think they have one anymore. They have a one-channel one as far as I know. And this is pretty great. Bang for the buck, you can't beat the Faderport 16. I'm going to say this in the Asparion sponsored video because it's true. It's 16 faders in a single controller, relatively small. But working with it in Cubase is pretty much a pain in the ass. Because yes, you can put it in Mackie mode or whatever mode it is, but then only certain things work, other things don't, all the labeling is wrong, and you're gonna have to remember what is actually behind the knob. So it works in a very reduced capacity. If you're using this in PreSonus's, now Fender-owned, Studio One, this is a great tool, but you have to work in Studio One. And I'm back. And if you're using the SSL one, that's probably great for certain things, especially if you're using the SSL plugins and software, but it's always kind of tied to a certain workflow. And whatever workflow I have, you don't have, because you probably do different music, you probably work differently with plugins, you probably work differently with VST instruments. I was just at Mark Mancina's studio. If you're seeing this, hi Mark. Hi Marlon. You know, Marlon isn't seeing that. Marlon's actually busy doing the job that Mark should be doing. Frickin' composers. And he's got several different things on the table. He's got stream decks on the table. One thing with 4 faders, one thing with more faders. He's got the Avid thing on the table. So for his workflow, certain things work and certain things don't. The special thing about the Asparion fader bank controller thing is it's very universally configurable. Can you do it? A lot of it, yes, but the very special thing is that it's a very small German company run by Patrick and David, who are complete nerds. David is the musician who wanted something great. Patrick's the complete MIDI nerd who can build it and maintain it and support it. So these work with any software. They even wrote me a script and figured it out so that I could control my camera system from right over here. So I could actually switch my cameras on these knobs. So this would be camera 2, camera 3, and so on. I mean, they looked at my companion software to run the ATEM switcher and then went home and wrote me and said, oh, we figured out how that works. It all takes, of course, some configuring. But the special thing about these the most special thing is their dedication to supporting the people who buy this, because they're not cheap. These are among the most pricey units you can buy. So let's talk about price very quickly, and then about how I use it, and all the super customization options that what I can't do, but they will do with you. They came in here, they put it on the table, and bam, 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 and you do this in Cubase and pull this down, and put the script here. I couldn't even follow. But you probably don't have to, because they will likely do a Zoom call with you, look on your screen, say, click on this, maybe even take over and do it for you. And when you're spending this kind of money, having this attention to detail and customer support is amazing. I don't want to figure it all out. Let them figure it all out. That's why they got the money. So if we look at the units, this is the D700, I'm going to call it F something. That's the main unit, and the only difference is that it's got this section right here. They're even working on an extra section with the jog wheel and all that stuff. So you got play, stop. Actually, you don't. This can be anything. We've got switcher bank, but this can be anything. I said, well, I would like to jump in. See, right now, I'm in Cubase, and it's jumping in banks of 24, right? Well, that's neat, but what if I just, right now my guitars are starting at 3 and 4. So I go click, 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 and now it starts at guitar 1. Because I wanted to be able to jump in 1 channel increments, they programmed it for me the way that I would want to look at it, by doing double clicks and just jumping in steps of 1. So that's one thing. So this is the main unit, clocking in at €12.99. So each expansion unit is $11.49, and it is very high end. This is all metal, and there's actually these tiny little screws right here that you connect them with, and they're thread. It goes into threads. It makes it one stable unit. So you put a screw in here and a screw in the back. I think 2 in the back, and you've got this beautiful unit. Each of them does require its own power supply. So if you can see in the back, each of them has a power supply. So I drilled a hole in the table, went down there, and there are 3 power supplies. And I said, well, why can't you chain the power through from one to the other? And they said, well, because we're using these super high-end faders, and they actually are amazingly fast, and they will take quite a bit of power. So realistically, running it from one power supply isn't good. We want the highest quality possible. So there you go. At these prices, and I know that's shocking, you know, $11.49 for the expansion units, $12.99 for the main unit. It doesn't even come with the meter bridge. So these little bridges here, they're TFT, some kind of OLED, whatever the words are. Very nice high-end screen with very nice resolution. The flickering is, of course, because of the cameras. They don't do that. And they just slide in. That's what they look like. And they're connected with a little not network cable, like little telephone cable. That's also in the back here, how you connect the units to each other with a tiny little cable, and that makes them all one big unit. And that means the main unit gets USB, what USB is that? USB-C, as it should be. And then they become one big unit. So the one special thing is highest grade components. They said, we don't want to do maybe the power supply is enough. No, each one has its own power supply. Killer faders, really fast. We have these encoders, which you can also push down. So when you push on one, for example, I'm doing panning here, and you push on it, it goes back into the middle. But that's just the way that mine is set up. You can program the push on the encoder to do whatever Facola you want, right? And these encoders, of course, have light rings around them. That's the one thing on this thing that I'm not super happy with. The light ring is very visible when you're staring on top. So if I was like here, yeah, that works. So I'm not excited about this light ring. The visual feedback I'm getting is, minimal or non-existent, because you'd have to be more above it. But what you can see is, maybe you can see it, they're different colors. So they're RGB in there. I'm removing cat and dog hair from it the whole time because it's black, and I don't know where we get cat and dog hair from. I have no idea. It's a mystery. But I can clearly see my electric guitars, they are green. And there's a distorted bass that's red. The snare is blue, and this is some kind of white. So it's following the Cubase layout. But again, that's just for me. Anything is possible. And then we've got these buttons here. So each channel has a mute. And you can see in Cubase, it's actually doing that. And in Cubase, mute is orange, and here mute is red. These are not RGB, they are fixed colors. They used to be all orange. That was confusing. So mute, no, that is actually orange. Record is red. Solo is green, and it's soloing. And then you can select, and that's blue. When I say, well, it's a little bit annoying. Let's say I'm soloed right here. So I've got many things in solo. In order to go out of solo, or even hand solo, wow, I would have to find all the channels. So in Cubase, I will go up here. See this? And there's a master solo and master mute. So I click that, and all my solo is gone. I would like that if I soloed several channels here, to have a way to just get rid of all of them. And they said, okay. And the next day I got a script, and you double click and it's gone. The same thing for mute. Mute, 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 malamute. It's a dog. How do I find all the ones and mute? No, we don't have to do that anymore. You used to. Double click. That's not the functionality for you. That's how I want it. And that's the very special thing. Whatever DAW you use, it'll work with it. Even more than DAWs, this will work in DaVinci. It'll work for anything that takes MIDI, or even not MIDI. Probably it's other Mackie UI protocols and whatever as well. I mean, not probably, it does. The big thing is complete customization. I said I would like this. And they're like, okay, so what I would have to do is, they sent me, I think it's a PDF or some kind of text document, and you just copy that into the Control Surface Script folder in Cubase, and done. Okay, so that's one way to do certain customizations. For example, something that I would have liked. So we have pan, EQ, send, and effects over here. So I can click pan. Now these encoders will do panning, EQ. So now this whole thing turns into the EQ for whatever is selected. So let's go back to pan. We're going to go to, let's say, my lead vocal right here. We're going to select that, right? And click EQ. So here's my EQ. And now you can't see this, but I can see low shelf and all these things. So by clicking, for example, it comes on. I can move it around. I can boost it. So let's not do a low shelf. Let's turn that back off. Here, boost it. So if you're using the built-in Cubase EQ, that's a great way to actually have really quick access to this, right? Pretty damn cool. But what if you're not using the built-in Cubase EQ? Well, I'm clicking on effects, and now it's showing me all these parameters, but that's for, I think, the first plugin in the chain. However, if I open up this and I click on it, gonna click on effects again. Here we go. Now I have control over this. Let me find out. So airband, see, I can actually click this around. We're gonna go be on 10 and air gain. I mean, it's a very simple EQ. So whatever you have active, you can actually control. Let me show you with bass. For example, I would go back to pan, go into bass. I can see that's green, bam. We select this. Gonna call this up. Gonna call up my EQ here. Click on it. And now, look at this. We're at 250. You can control that. So that's actually rather straightforward. And you've got very nice fine control. And sometimes it's a very good idea to feel the knob instead of moving around with the mouse. In this case, you can move it around. I also don't do a lot of automation in terms of volume. But sometimes it really makes sense to do that. So when we look at this sequence, for example, that we got here, there are 6 guitars right there. And you can see, let me open up a kind of bass. So you can see a lot of automation happening here. And that actually is drawn in, right? But I could have, if I had that, just automated that by hand. Let me play this thing for you. So you could see I very easily could write new information in there, which of course I really don't want now. So I'm just going to kill that. I'm an information killer. So for volumes, obviously it makes sense. I feel when I have a control surface in front of me that vocal, especially vocal and sends are very important for me to touch and feel and automate by hand. I wouldn't really automate reverb sends on a vocal if I didn't have a control surface. I would kind of have it sitting there at a certain amount, but doing this kind of automation on certain words really makes sense to me. So the way that this was set up, let's go to the vocal group, which is all the way over here. And I'm going to select that. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 sends, and it is on send number 4, which is where I want to go. And so the way that this works is you've got this send knob, right? And you push it, and every time it goes to the next send. Now, this is programmed now to only take 4 sends into account. Once you push again, it'll go to 1, 2, 3, 4. And it goes back to 1. But if you're telling them, it makes sense for me because I don't have to cycle through 8 of them. If you're telling them I need 5 or 6 cents, they can put that in there, and they will, because I want to sell this thing to you. Here's now my send for the vocals, and you can see I can move that about, right? But now, of course, I could automate it by hitting right on the channel. Let's do that for fun, okay?
I got
Obviously, some of that was stupid, but it's the general idea. Now, they had this when you pushed send up here on the knob. So you could do this, and you can still do this with a knob. For me, that wasn't great, and it wasn't very visual, right? I like to see this thing go up and down. And one day later, they're like, oh, we fixed it. Here's a new script. Bam. Okay. This is, for me, the absolutely special thing about Asparion, that you don't have to sit on a phone for 7 hours to talk to someone from tech support. It is two people that know what they're doing, that will pay attention to their customers' needs and tailor the product to the customer. It's a blank page of blackness. It's a black page, okay? So this is not about Cubase at all, but I'll show you how it shows up in Cubase. So you pull up this lower pane here, you go to MIDI remote, and then the Asparion D700FT and 2x D700F shows up, because that's how I defined it in the Asparion software. It's going towards the mixer. You could probably even do synthesizers with it, I assume. Yeah, probably. So here, you can say it's going to the mixer, or probably a synth that you had open, which I don't. And then you can actually add different functions. So the volume on it, or there's one encoder over here, is going to the control room. And when you push it, it's muting the control room. We define that in here. And then when you I forgot! How freaking cool is that? So you can select something, right? So I select this right here. And when you click play, it plays it from where the cursor is. You double click play, it starts it from the selection. And that's all completely configurable. And you can see we only did 3 things. This is all the stuff you can assign to anything here. You could literally assign individual things to each of the buttons above the faders. So each of the mute, solo, record, and select doesn't have to do that. Each of those could do a different function within your DAW or program. I'm moving it, and you can check that. And then again, you can right click and even very easily assign MIDI functions to that. It's just, the possibilities are absolutely crazy. The thing is, I didn't really know too much of this stuff. I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just using it, and that's how I like it. If I wanted complete knowledge of this whole system, my brain would explode. Let them do it. Patrick and David know their shit, right? This is where the script is. You can actually access it right from here. Open script. But again, this is all Cubase specific thing. Export script, controller script, deactivate, MIDI remote, manager, blah, blah, blah. You just define it in here once. If you don't know how that works, and you probably don't in your DAW, then you call them up. Because that's how that works. That's why you spend the money. Okay? So this is how I'm using it. I'm using it primarily for levels, and especially for automating effects. But the cool thing is, I'm going to just get out of Cubase here. Don't save. Bam! It all went to 0 now. Which it didn't. See, everything's 0. And it didn't do that. So I told them, it's a little bit annoying. I get out of Cubase, and all the faders are still messed up. And I always have to pull them down because it's annoying me. And yet again, the next day, oh, we fixed that. Get out of Cubase, they all go to 0, as they should. And now you can actually see that all the knobs are slowly color changing, which again, you can set up. But I wanted to show you something else. If I go into my Atom software control, which is for my video switcher, right? We didn't do any defining in there, nothing. We could probably do more. But the first 8 channels, as you can see, it automatically just sees it and it works. We can probably do a lot more customizing there, but I don't have to because I don't really use that mixer. It's just an indicator of what's possible. So here is the configurator. So I can switch it into test mode, and now you can actually test it out. And in here, you can actually have presets. Look at this. Universal, Mackie, Huey, OSC, which apparently is for the whole, for the whole system. Cubase, Live, Logic, Studio One, Bitwig, Fruity Studio, Reaper, Pro Tools, Adobe, Waveform, Reason Digital Performance, Sonos, Samplitude, Vegas. I think they got everything covered. And if they don't, they'll add it. Up here, you can see the extensions. So we got 1, 2, 3 extensions. You can change the colors. Right now it's doing rainbow. We can actually do that faster, just for fun. It's doing rainbow colors. And you can even change the colors through MIDI. On the main unit, there's expression and sustain pedal inputs. And you can define what they do if you need foot control. Here, we actually control the display. Right now, we can't because Cubase actually isn't sending anything to the displays. But that's the other special thing. The display shows way more than other displays do. It's got, 2 lines, 3 lines? I think 3. It has level. So you can say show 1, show 2. Flip them around. Track numbers. And then you can move the lines up and down. Very, very cool customization options. And the little display, yes, it's small, but it shows you a shit ton. Do you want the metering in stereo or mono? And then you can say how fast is the meter syncing. It wasn't behaving right, so we talked about it. Bam, the next day it was behaving right. So anything that it doesn't do that bugs you, they'll fix it. All within the possibilities of your DAW, of course. Sometimes things just do not work, and sometimes things would have to be taken care of from the software side, from the manufacturer, of course, but anything within their power. So up here, you do the settings for the encoders, which again, you can also push down. There's a double click. There's a double click on everything if you wanted that. So that gives you a lot more than you see here. But the crazy thing is right here, codes. MIDI, Mackie, Huey, or the connector software, which is a separate software. Not quite 100% sure what that does, and I don't have to because they do. So the stop button, okay, is doing this thing, note on, note off. And you can completely change it to whatever your DAW needs. So bank left, bank right, the loop button. So this is all now programmed in a certain way. And then there's a magic button, which is this little snowflake. So transport on double click, right? So play we have enabled, and bank left and bank right we have enabled to do a certain thing, to go only one channel, or to go to send this MIDI information, which then in Cubase we assign to play from the selection. Okay, you have to enable the double click, but no biggie. And now on the extensions, look at this. Select 1 through 8 on extension 1. Does all these functions, but it can do different things. It could also be, and then record on this. All of them do that. And then mute, do that. And then solo, do that. So each of these can do whatever you want them to do. And of course, fader touch does a certain thing. And now we get to extension 1, double click. So now you define what the double click does on each of those buttons. And they're all enabled because my double click will unmute everything or unsolo everything. So you see the select and the record have no double click assigned. But the solo, again, has a double click assigned to unsolo or Han Solo. Wow. There's nothing on the pedal expression and virtual. So now we're getting to all the encoders, right? The possibilities are absolutely ridiculous. What do we have here? How fast do things go? This is, I mean, I don't even want to deactivate motors. Faders as continuous controllers. And then you've got the options down here for how bright the display is, how bright the rings are, how bright the encoders are. You can probably see what's happening right there, right? How fast do you double click? Complete and utter customizability is the word here. Now, there is the connector software, which, as far as I understand, is meant to automatically switch presets when you enter into different software. So if you are in Cubase, it'll recognize you in Cubase, give you a certain functionality. Once you switch to Logic, even though I think Cubase is open, and I think that's what the connected software will do, it will switch to that. So you could go back and forth and it'll do immediately what it needs to do. If I understand this correctly. Again, it's a very complex piece of software and hardware. If no DAW is active, go to preset OSC. That's what it's doing right here, right? All of this seems very complicated. I understand, honestly, about 2% of the system. And that's how I want to keep it. Because when I use it, it just works. If it doesn't work, hey, David, what's happening? And that is what they offer to their clients. Personal support, looking at your needs, and making sure that their high-end, not so cheap DAW controller, or any controller, it can be a video controller, will meet your needs. My needs are very different than yours. You might want completely different things on the encoders. You're fine with sends on the encoders, but I need sends on the faders. And I don't know how they do it, but apparently they know all the software. They know Bitwig. I don't even know what Bitwig is. And they will work with you to make sure that your investment in the Asparion DAW controllers or control surfaces makes you feel taken care of and finally have the thing that works for the software that you are using. It was a pain in the ass for me to have something that had a pre-tailored way to work, and everything that it says on the buttons didn't actually do that. And I'm like, well, I would like to be able to unsolo things by double clicking. They're like, oh, we can do that. I'd like a sense to actually be on faders, not on encoders. Oh, we can do that. I'd like to be able to go back and forth, not in steps of 24, but I would like to see my whole guitar group. So they're like, oh, we can do double click on the arrows. That is the main reason why the Asparion shit is amazing. I'm not the biggest fan of the lights on the light ring on the encoder. The encoders for me do not exactly what I want them to do in terms of the visual feedback. But mixing has been fun, quicker, more creative since I had this. I have 24 faders right in front of me. I mean, it's crazy. The quality is very high. You're going to say, oh, but way too expensive. You know, if you're saying this, you're probably not the target customer. You're probably not a professional that gets stuck with the way that his control surface is and wishes it did something else. You're probably not switching between different programs, which this allows you to do. This allows you to do things that I don't think anyone else that I know of allows you to do. And especially, try to get someone at Avid on the phone. Try to get someone at Presonus on the phone. Good luck. Okay? This is the big thing. Support and knowledge and personal assistance. I wish I could have shown you a billion more things, but honestly, a step-by-step manual for this, only they could do. Because it is so all-encompassing that I'm happy that it does what it needs to do for me, and for you, it'll do something different. And if you have questions before you buy, whether or not it'll do the thing that you need it to do, contact David and or Patrick at Asparion and ask. They'll be there for you. I thank them for placing these in my studio. That is very, very welcome. And I am looking forward to the next mixes. I've already done a lot of them and they've been better. I'll put links below. Thanks for watching. And Animals at the end.
The bitch is there. She died of an STD, and no one came to her funeral. They did not want to be seen. Ding dong, the slave is dead. His back pain he couldn't stand, so the prospect of deep pockets somehow slid out.